Well, greetings to everybody, and thank you to the organisers and to everyone who's made this event possible. I'm here really as a philosopher of comparative religions, and I met Acharyashree Tulsi in 1995. I've written a long description about my meeting with him. It was a conference in Ladnon, a very hot event, and when it came for my turn to speak on the third day of the event, after listening to dozens and dozens of presentations, I had a lot of questions bubbling up in my mind, and there was no time for questions. Like today, we haven't had time for real discussion and questions yet. Hopefully we can mingle over lunch and the breaks. But so I asked a series of questions, and in a sense they're still with me, about the very nature of nonviolence, the relationship between philosophy and biology, the fact that we live in a world in which life depends on ingestion and the cells of our bodies depend on some degree of violence is implicit in the natural order of things. So the question I had really was, is a world of absolute non-violence possible? And if not, how do we reach a level of sustainable violence in which Thomas Hobbes, when he talked about political philosophy, he said that all life, all human beings are engaged in conflict continuously. The thing is somehow to reach a social system that manages it and contains it, and that can use that energy creatively. So the questions I asked that day in Ladner led to my being asked to write the summing up of the conference. So I came up with a thing called the Ladner Declaration, which was a summing up of the thoughts that the delegates had from all over the world. And subsequently I've been back to India several times. I always learn and discover and meet new friends and have new experiences. And most recently I went to Jaipur. The Anuvrat organisation organised another conference in Jaipur in January, which again I came up with a declaration which, if you've not seen it, I hope it will be published. I was hoping it was going to be available at this conference, but I don't see it anywhere. And this was in the form of a 9-petaled flower with a central bit to do with non-violence. So what we tried to do was sum up how non-violence, ahimsa, non-harming, can be spread throughout all our activities in society. There are sections to do with the family, with business, with ecology, with science, with education, and with religion and philosophy, and so on. I want to talk a little bit about how the religions of the world and the different schools of thought, in a sense, can be understood with an ecological paradigm. In my work as a teacher in the United Kingdom, I've taught in schools for many years, teaching religious studies and philosophy. I think there's a false model which is affecting the globe and causing many conflicts. In the Balkans we had tremendous religious wars. In the Middle East we're now suffering from tremendous conflicts between Islamic and Jewish, and the Christian community are being persecuted and killed most gruesomely. I think the problem that we have is a philosophical problem, which is that if I'm right, by definition you're wrong. Now this is a logical error. One of the greatest Buddhist logicians, Nagarjuna, pointed out that we need a new logic system. It's neither this nor that. And in the Jain philosophy, Anikantvada again teaches tolerance. Reality is very, very complex. It's a wonderful, rich, multi-dimensional, multicoloured thing that we live in. Quantum theory and modern science, figures like David Bohm, have talked about how everything is structured at a higher or a deeper level of interconnectedness, what he calls the implicate order. And we really need to grow up from this religious oversimplification of this idea that because I'm right, therefore you were wrong. As a tool for this, and this was inspired by my discussions with Acharyashree Tulsi and other philosophers in India, I've come up with this periodic table of the world's religious and philosophical systems. This is inspired by Mendeleev's discovery of the elements, that they fit into a categorical structure. So what I've done here is produced a table which could be in every classroom, every university and every place of learning on the planet, in which every single philosophy, every single religious tradition and secular and humanist views are represented in different categories. So the coloured orange are the humanist perspectives, the pale yellow are the philosophical schools like Kantianism, Pythagoreanism, Hegelianism, logical positivism. The Jain are right in the middle, the white ones. This is a deliberate symbol that in a sense the Jain tradition is at the heart of this map. The Christianities, every different denomination of the light blue, the Muslims of the dark yellow, the Shinto are here, many new religious movements from all over the world, the light grey and so on. You also have the esoteric movements, which are the kind of pale yellow. So what I'm hoping is this model of interconnectedness, which is inspired by the heart of the idea of the Jain notion of the interconnectedness of all realities, which inspired a Greek philosopher called Pyrrho of Elis, who met some Jains way back at the time of Alexander the Great. And that inspired him to go back to Europe and launch the school of philosophy known as skepticism. Now, skepticism is a school in Western thought that doesn't over-enthuse about any one truth, any one perspective, but says, okay, well, let's look at the evidence, let's look at the counter-evidence, let's use reason here. And skepticism then inspired Cicero and the development of the whole notion of what it means to be an academic in the Western university life. So, but what I think Western academia has forgotten is the notion that skepticism has a transcendental purpose. It was summed up in the phrase epoche, which is a Greek term meaning suspension of judgment. I think that the Middle East, and what I'm trying to do as chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East, I've been interviewing people in Palestine, in Israel, other Middle Eastern countries, is in a sense trying to get them to suspend judgment. Each tradition has its own holy books, its own prophetic lineage. What interests me as a philosopher is how can we develop an intelligent hermeneutic, a way of interpreting these holy scriptures from a perennial or transpersonal perspective. In my work at the University of London, I completed a PhD proposing that this notion of transpersonal history can help unpick the unhelpful conflicts. The world as an energy system has got blocked in places. We need a kind of intellectual acupuncture to free that energy. Because ultimately we all come from the one energy. Every idea circulates around this globe, just as I've said about the notion of epoche coming from the Jains, going to the West, and now it's embedded if you do a degree anywhere in Europe. That's the first thing you learn. The same with the Zoroastrian contribution to ideas. Their notion of this conflict between good and evil became embedded in Judaism, in Christianity and Islam. Their notion of the Seishant, who's going to come and redeem mankind, this Messiah figure. Again, that was embedded in Christianity and so on. So there's a total ecology, a circulation of ideas going on the planet. The sooner we waken up to that and in a sense become a more sophisticated, intellectual, noetic, self-realization program. Mankind needn't be stuck in this. At the moment we're playing this game where we're stuck in one of the boxes. I'm in this box, therefore I'm going to attack you. It's like trench warfare. We're in a kind of World War I level of thinking. And what I love the Jains so much and respect you so much for is because you showed way back and ever since that we can get out of the boxes. We can rise to this transcendental place of peace. And, the whole world can join you in that. In my work in Britain, I also direct the Global Green University, which is a third-order network of scholars working on these important issues to do with how we can build a sustainable global community. And there are many challenges facing us. I used to work at the University of Oxford in London. I think that sometimes universities can be too parochial, and we need to think globally. The problems facing our planet are so vast that this is why these kind of gatherings are so important. And I want to finish by just reflecting on one thing. In Scotland recently we had a vote as to whether the United Kingdom should remain one country. And many of my friends took the view that if Scotland broke away, because it had declared itself for nuclear pacifism, this would be a good thing. They'd get rid of the nuclear weapons, which patrol outside my castle where my institute is based in Scotland. And I was tempted to vote yes for that reason. But then I thought no, because what's going to happen? Those nuclear weapons are simply going to be forced to move somewhere. And if the United Kingdom breaks up, I think it would send the wrong signal to other countries that are struggling with this problem. So I thought in the end, no, I'd like to keep the United Kingdom together, so I voted no. But what I did was I made a commitment that what we need to do is remove the nuclear weapons not just from Scotland, but from the whole planet. And I'd like to offer the United Kingdom as a kind of vehicle, diplomatically. I think we can do this. And I think that it's a shame the United Kingdom ambassador didn't come to this meeting, but I'm sure if he had come, it's time that we got the United Nations, got the international authorities to seriously focus on the eradication of nuclear weapons, which are indiscriminate and which don't abide by any of the rules of chivalry, of warfare and so on. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, I was thinking that you've just recently launched this vehicle around Mars. The Indian community, although our last speaker was saying India doesn't do things very well, I think on the contrary, you're an amazing country. And you've just shown the world, what you're capable of. What I'm going to propose, given that you have this new friendship with China saluted you as the Pearl of Asia, okay? So if India and China could join with the United Kingdom and seriously launch a proposal globally to reduce all the nuclear weapon states by maybe 2/3, we'd have to talk Russia and America and so on into joining that. That, I think, would show the world that we mean business here. Now, the Jains, and I think it's also symbolic that this spacecraft is orbiting Mars, the god of war. I just want to end with a reflection that Acharyashree Tulsi was like a scientist looking at violence and non-violence. We have to look at Mars. The god of war is a very powerful deity in the West and in Indian tradition. Every culture honours the deity of war. So we have to look very closely at the deity of war and then, in a sense, rehumanise him. Say, thank you very much, Mars. You've been a dominant figure for so long. We've now seen you close up. We've taken photographs. We're now going to grow out of misusing your energy. The greatest warrior in the Druid tradition of the Celts, the greatest warrior, never raises a blow. The Druids were sworn to total non-violence because the greatest warrior achieves victories non-violently. And that's why Gandhi, I think, was, in a sense, showing that Druid wisdom also. So let's take this symbol of India's exploration of Mars in a transcendental way. Let's interpret it in a symbolic way. And find a way to realise that dream of Acharyashree Tulsi, that we can analyse violence to the point where we can learn to transcend it. I'm going to finish there. There's so many other speakers with so much wisdom to share. Thank you so much.